Within 10 years, most of the fiat money in the world today is going to be worthless, because we're at a point now where the printing of fiat by the major central banks, whether it's the Fed, the ECB, Bank of England, Bank of Japan, has gone into hyperbolic kind of mania. And that's all going to Venezuela. In other words, Venezuela is the role model for countries like the United States and others who are just hyperbolically printing absolutely out of control. So Bitcoin in those terms is literally has an infinite price target.
All right, I'm going to rewind and focus on what you said there. Clearly, we are seeing unprecedented money printing stimulus, not just here in the US, around the world. Here in the US, we do have inflation at a 40-year high. But you're trying to tell me that you believe that in 10 years' time, we will see the end of fiat currency in a decade's time?
Well, I'd rather be a couple of years too early than one day too late. What we know, Michelle, is that over 300 years, not a single fiat money has escaped insolvency and losing either 100% or 99% of its value. That's the track record fiat money has for the past 300 years. None have escaped going to zero. So why would you bet that suddenly that 300-year trend is going to somehow change course? And I think over the next 10 years, as you see these economies, these major economies like the US and China, who are carrying debt loads 300% to GDP, suddenly hit the breakers, and they're going to just try to print their way out of all this. And so we're talking about a fiat money apocalypse.
Look, to your point, mankind has debased every fiat currency since the beginning of fiat currencies. I mean, there was a time when the Portuguese escudo used to be the global reserve currency. So I hear that trend, and it makes sense on a fundamental level, but it's your timeline that I'm somewhat questioning here.
Well, like I said, I'd rather be cautious and load up on as much Bitcoin as I possibly can now and not try to play games on the timing side. What I do know for sure is that these fiat money, all this currency is going to go to zero. You know, the reason why Bitcoin is already in the tens of thousands of dollars per coin is that all of the major fiat money in the world is right now in a hyperinflationary collapse against Bitcoin. That's already happening right now. The dollar, the yen, yuan, they're all in a hyperinflationary collapse against Bitcoin right now. And that trend is going to continue.
And yet we haven't seen that reflected so far in the price of Bitcoin.
Yes.
Considering.
Well, how do you think you got to Bitcoin at 40,000, 50,000, 60,000 a coin?
Well, I mean, the recent decline.
The fiat money is collapsing in a hyperinflationary collapse. The purchasing power of the fiat money versus Bitcoin is collapsing. And that's why the price of Bitcoin is where it's at today. It's discounting the fact that paper money is already collapsing right now versus Bitcoin. And when a country like El Salvador makes Bitcoin legal tender, it means now you've got a country that's got the ability to give its citizens unconfiscatable wealth, uncensorable wealth, and divorce itself from the fiat money world, the IMF and these other institutions that have been really draconian in their application of loan extractions and everything that comes with it. And right. So this is the beginning of a new era, and that's going to spread. So when you have the domino effect and you have this region, like Argentina is now going down the path of hyper-Bitcoinization, all these countries in Africa are becoming hyper-Bitcoinized. So when that hyper-Bitcoinization wave starts to go global, that puts enormous pressure on the dollar. On the geopolitical front, you've now got Russia, China, Iran. They're dumping the dollar, right? So there's nobody supporting the dollar on those in those countries. So the dollar's at a genuine risk of collapsing outright here. And 10 years is a long time in geopolitical terms. And when you've got something like Bitcoin, who's been appreciating at over 100% a year for more than 11 years, it's been the best performing asset in 11 years, and that's set to continue for the next 10, 20 years. When you add all that together, you come up with an enormously higher price for Bitcoin. You see paper money trading down to levels like Venezuela, And you see a different world where those that were in charge of the global financial system are no longer in charge.
So in 10 years' time, you're seeing the collapse of the dollar being replaced globally by a Bitcoin, standard Bitcoin, as the global reserve currency or means of exchange.
Well, yeah, I think a good example would be the internet. You know, back in the 1990s, I was part of the dot-com industry at that time. And within in 1997, Michelle, it was believed that the internet was a fad. And
Paul Krugman, yeah.
At the New York Times wrote a story saying, oh, this thing won't last. And I was in Hollywood at the time, and executives were embarrassed to put an email address on their business cards because they thought it looked too geeky. But then you had that hockey stick moment, and now the internet is ubiquitous. And that happened very, very quickly. Similarly, Bitcoin is like a marriage between gold and a messaging app. And so it has that networking effect, and we're getting into that hockey stick moment where adoption goes from approximately 200 million people using Bitcoin today to 2 billion people using Bitcoin within the next year or two. That crowds out the legacy system, the fiat money system, and the fiat money banks. And that happens very, very quickly because it is technology, and it's technology that can spread hyperbolically. And so that's why I'm pretty aggressive on my timeline.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
Do you want to know one thing about crypto? I made over 3,000% in profit in a few weeks. Fact is, the traditional financial system, the traditional money system makes you poor, not rich. If you want to earn $500,000, $1 million, you have to wait until you're 50, 60, 70 in the traditional financial system, and you probably will still be broke. And you will be old. This is not a sexy combination, as you can imagine. But the question is, how can you start in crypto and make these profits? Where to invest? Where to start? My name is Gunnar, and I'm from Germany, as you can hear, and things are a little bit different in Germany. More about that later on. Fact is, there are lots of different cryptocurrencies. It's a gigantic universe where beginners and professionals get easily lost. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There are 7 key steps you need to follow to become successful in this market. You have to know them, and if you fail one of them, it's literally impossible to succeed in this market. Just an example, one of the key points is your exchange, and one of the biggest are, for example, Binance and Coinbase. These are trusted and well-established exchanges, but, and this is a big but, you won't find the super profitable coins on those exchanges. The unknown super profitable coins that get gigantic profits are not traded on those kind of exchanges. They are traded on much smaller insider platforms that are barely known. And I can tell you what those super secret exchanges are and why they are so profitable. And another super important thing are the right information sources. The point is, the internet is gigantic. There are hundreds and hundreds of YouTube channels, blogs, pages, and much, much more. And there are also market makers and influencers. For example, Elon Musk, he is not a crypto guy, but the moment he recommended Dogecoin, it went through the roof, to the moon, so to say. But why did he recommend it? Where did he hear it from? He didn't hear it from newspapers. And believe me, he is listening to someone. But you have to know who, and you have to react before he is reacting. This is really, really important. And these are only 2 of the 7 steps you have to follow in order to be successful in crypto. And if you want to know all of these steps in much more detail, and if you want to have a comprehensive checklist, here's what you should do. There is a link below this video. Click on this link and you will get the opportunity to subscribe to my channel. Click on the link and you will see a video where I explain the next steps. So see you soon. Click on the link now. I'll see you there.